The Cedar Pines Theater is gone now, at least in our world. But if you look into the wrong mirror, you might still see its lobby. And if you do, count the people, because the moment you notice there's one more than before, it's already too late to look away. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Tonight, I've got something special and unsettling for you. We're heading deep into rural Vermont, to a movie theater with rules you must follow if you want to survive the night. Before we start, make sure to like this video, share it with a friend who loves creepy stories, and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. All right, lights down, screen on, let's begin. The first thing you should know about the Cedar Pines Theater is that it doesn't feel like a theater, not in the way you'd expect. Most theaters are bright in the lobby, full of popcorn smells and the hum of chatter. Cedar Pines is different. The carpet is old, the lights are dim, and even when there's a crowd, it feels muted, like the air itself swallows sound. When I applied for the night shift, I wasn't looking for much, just a paycheck. The theater sat right off a two-lane road, tucked between a patch of woods and an old train depot that hasn't been in service for decades. My car's headlights would sweep over the faded marquee every evening, half the letters burnt out, leaving behind strange half-words in red neon. On my first day, I met the manager, a wiry man named Mr. Harlow. He had a way of speaking that made it seem like he was always in a rush, but never actually moved quickly. He led me into the small office behind the concession counter and slid a single sheet of paper across the desk toward me. No forms, no tax documents, just rules. There were 10 of them, typed on a yellowed page that looked older than me. They weren't numbered, just listed in a block, each separated by a small dash. No heading, no explanation. I read them out loud without meaning to. Do not enter Auditorium 3 after midnight. If you hear knocking from inside, do not answer. Never sell a ticket to the 12:05 a.m. showing of the last reel. If someone insists, call Mr. Harlow. Clean all auditoriums in numerical order except Auditorium 5. That one must be cleaned first. If you find a ticket stub dated before 1974, burn it immediately. Do not speak to anyone in the lobby mirror after closing. The rest were just as strange, odd, specific, and written like commands from someone who expected no questions. When I looked up, Mr. Harlow was staring at me, waiting. "Is this some kind of joke?" I asked. He shook his head. "You follow the rules, you keep your job, and you stay safe." Safe. The word didn't sit right. I laughed awkwardly, but he didn't. His face stayed flat, eyes locked on me until I folded the paper and slipped it into my pocket. That first night was quiet. The last movie ended around 11:30, and I started cleaning as instructed. The building creaked like an old ship, every sound amplified by the emptiness. When I got to Auditorium 5, an oddly narrow room with faded green seats, I noticed something strange. The air inside was warmer than the rest of the theater, almost humid. The screen was blank, but for just a moment, I thought I saw a shadow move across it. I told myself it was my own reflection in the dim exit light. I finished cleaning and moved to Auditorium 1. The rules had said to go in numerical order, except for 5, which came first, so I followed them exactly. By the time I finished Auditorium 3, it was close to midnight. I was wheeling the trash bin toward the lobby when I heard it. Knocking. 3 slow, deliberate knocks. It came from inside Auditorium 3, the one I had just cleaned. I froze in the hallway, the sound echoing down toward me. My first instinct was to go back. Maybe someone had been locked in. But the rule flashed in my mind. Do not enter Auditorium 3 after midnight. If you hear knocking from inside, do not answer. I stood there for what felt like a full minute, staring at the closed door. The knocking stopped. The silence that followed was heavier than before. I told myself it was the building settling, or maybe pipes shifting. I forced myself to keep moving. Around 12:15, as I was wiping down the concession counter, a man walked in. I didn't hear the front door open. He was just suddenly there, standing in the lobby. He was tall, pale, and wearing an outdated suit that looked like it belonged in an old black and white movie. His eyes were fixed on me in a way that made my skin tighten. "I'd like a ticket," he said, voice low and smooth, "for the last reel." I swallowed. We're closed for the night." His lips curled slightly. "You have a 12:05 showing? I'll take one." The words from the paper pounded in my head. Never sell a ticket to the 12:05 a.m. showing of the last reel. If someone insists, call Mr. Harlow. My hand drifted toward the phone behind the counter. Sorry, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I can't sell you that ticket. The man didn't blink. His eyes seemed to darken, though the lights above us stayed the same. For a second, I thought he was going to step forward, but instead he just smiled faintly, turned and walked toward the exit. Only, the door didn't open. He reached it, and without touching the handle, he was gone. One moment he was there, the next he wasn't. I stood frozen, the air around me suddenly colder. My hand was still hovering over the phone. That night when I left, I noticed something in my car's headlights, a small, crumpled piece of paper sitting in the middle of the parking lot. I picked it up. It was a ticket stub. The last reel, 12:05 a.m., July 14th, 1973. The paper felt warm in my hand, and when I looked back toward the theater, I could have sworn there was someone standing in the lobby window, watching me. I barely slept after that first night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that man's pale face, his slow smile, and the way he'd simply vanished through the theater door. My mind kept circling back to the ticket stub in my pocket, dated July 14, 1973. The rules had been clear. If you find a ticket stub dated before 1974, burn it immediately. But I hadn't. It was still sitting on my nightstand, as if part of me was afraid that burning it would make something worse happen. When I came in the next evening, Mr. Harlow was already in the lobby. He didn't greet me. He didn't ask about my first night. He just said, "Did you follow the rules?" I nodded, hesitated, then added, "I found a ticket stub from 1973. His face tightened. "Did you burn it?" I shook my head. For a long moment, he just stared at me, his jaw shifting like he was chewing on words he didn't want to say. Finally, he exhaled sharply. "Bring it to me. Tonight, before you leave." There was no mistaking the seriousness in his voice. I promised I would. The night started slow. A handful of people came for the early showings, mostly teenagers with nothing better to do. By 10:45, the lobby was empty again. I moved from room to room, back cleaning as instructed. When I entered Auditorium 5, again first before any of the others, I noticed something new. On the screen, faint and flickering, an image was playing. No projector was on, and no movie was scheduled. It was a grainy black and white shot of the theater's lobby. Not how it looked now. This lobby was pristine, new, and bright. People in 1950s clothing were moving through it. They weren't watching a movie. They were all just standing. And then, slowly, in unison, every single one of them turned to look at the camera. I blinked, and the image was gone. Just a blank, gray-white screen. I told myself I was overtired and got back to work, but my hands felt shaky. By the time I made it to Auditorium 3, I kept checking the clock. Midnight was creeping closer. At exactly 12:03, I heard it again. The knocking. 3 slow, deliberate knocks. It was just like the night before, except this time it came with something else. A voice. Low, muffled, but clear enough to make out. "Let me out." I backed away, heart thudding. The voice came again, louder. "Please, let me out." Every instinct screamed at me to open the door. But I remembered the rule. Do not enter Auditorium 3 after midnight. If you hear knocking from inside, do not answer. I kept backing up until I reached the corner where the hallway bent toward the lobby. That's when I saw him, the man from last night, standing halfway down the hall, facing me. Only this time, his suit was torn, his pale skin streaked with something dark. His smile was wider, unnatural. "Still not selling me that ticket?" he asked softly. I turned and bolted for the lobby, but when I got there, the lights were out. Every single one. The concession counter was gone, replaced by an old-fashioned wooden stand like something out of the 1930s. The air smelled of stale perfume and cigarette smoke. People were standing in the shadows, men in old hats, women in long dresses. None of them moved. None of them blinked. Then they all turned toward me at once. I stumbled back toward the hallway, but it wasn't there anymore. The theater doors were shut tight, and the only light came from a single glowing rectangle behind me, the lobby mirror. In the reflection, I saw myself. But I wasn't standing alone. The man in the suit was right behind me, his hand resting on my shoulder. I spun around. No one was there. The lobby lights flickered back on, and everything was as it had been. Concession counter, soda machines, faded carpet. My breath came fast and shallow. I grabbed my stuff and went straight to Mr. Harlow's office. He was sitting at the desk, flipping through an old ledger. Without a word, I pulled the ticket stub from my pocket and set it down in front of him. He stared at it for a moment, then reached into a drawer and took out a small metal tin. Inside were dozens of ticket stubs, yellowed, brittle, all dated before 1974. Without looking up, he said, "Don't leave your car in the lot tonight. Park down the road." I wanted to ask why, but the look in his eyes told me I wouldn't want the answer. When I left the theater that night, I parked 2 blocks away. As I walked toward my car, I glanced back once. There, in the lobby window, the man in the suit was watching me again, and this time he waved. By the 3rd night, I was starting to feel like the theater wasn't just a job. It was a trap. Every shift seemed to stretch longer than the hours on the clock, and the shadows in the hallways seemed darker than they should be. Mr. Harlow didn't ask about the man in the suit. He didn't ask about what I'd seen in the lobby or the voices from Auditorium 3. He just reminded me, in his flat, clipped tone, follow the rules, every one of them, no exceptions. It was raining when I arrived that night, the kind of cold drizzle that soaked through clothes in minutes. The theater looked worse in the wet, its old brick walls glistening, the faded marquee reflecting in shallow puddles. Inside, the lobby smelled faintly of mildew. The first few hours were uneventful, though I couldn't shake the feeling that something was different. The regular creaks and hums of the building were muted, replaced by an occasional sharp tapping somewhere in the walls. When the last audience left and the clock crept toward 11:30, I began my cleaning routine. As always, I started with Auditorium 5. Tonight, the air inside wasn't just warm, it was stifling. My shirt stuck to my skin. The screen was blank at first, but as I made my way down the rows, something began to fade in. It wasn't a movie this time. It was a still image, a close-up of a woman's face. She was smiling, but her eyes were wide and wet, as though she'd been crying for a long time. Her lips moved silently, forming words I couldn't hear. Then all at once, the sound hit me, a faint, distant whisper that seemed to come from everywhere at once. "Help me." The image blinked out, replaced by the blank, gray glow. I hurried through the cleaning and moved to Auditorium 1, then 2. When I reached 3, the clock read 11:57. I worked fast, knowing what would happen if I stayed past midnight. I had just stepped out when I heard it again. The knocking. 3 slow knocks. This time I didn't just hear the voice. I felt it. The words vibrated in my chest like the speaker was inches from my ear. "Please, I can't breathe." I squeezed my eyes shut, gripping the trash bin so hard my knuckles ached. When I opened them again, the hallway lights were dimmer. I hadn't heard them flicker, hadn't heard anything at all. The silence was total. And that's when I saw something impossible. The door to Auditorium 3 was opening, slowly, on its own. It was just a sliver at first, a black gap in the frame. Then it creaked wider, the sound sharp in the unnatural quiet. I wanted to run, but my legs wouldn't move. From the darkness inside, something pale emerged. A hand, thin, almost skeletal, with long fingers that curled against the frame like it was testing the world outside. Then another hand, and then the man in the suit stepped out. Only he didn't look like he had before. His skin was gray now, the edges of his mouth cracked and dark. His eyes were sunken deep, almost lost in shadow. "You don't follow the rules," he said softly. "I did," I whispered, though my voice barely worked. He tilted his head, the motion jerky. "You keep things you shouldn't. You look when you shouldn't." I stumbled backward toward the lobby, but he followed, each step impossibly slow, yet somehow closing the distance between us. When I reached the concession stand, I grabbed the phone. It didn't work, just stout and sharp. The man's voice came through the line instead. "Show me the last reel." I dropped the phone. The lobby lights went out in an instant. When they came back on, I wasn't in the theater anymore. I was standing in the middle of a massive, empty auditorium I didn't recognize. The seats stretched endlessly, vanishing into darkness. The screen in front of me flickered to life. It was showing the lobby. Not the lobby as it was now, but as it had been on the screen in Auditorium 5. New, clean, crowded. And in the center of the crowd was me. I watched myself standing there, confused, while people walked around me. None of them looked at me, until they all did, at the same time. Every face turned toward me in the reflection of the screen. Then the lights in the auditorium went out, and the only thing I could see was movement in the rows around me. Something was in there with me. I couldn't see, but I could hear. Soft, deliberate movements in the dark. The faint rustle of fabric brushing against the seats. Breathing, not mine, slow and damp, like air drawn through waterlogged lungs. I kept turning in circles, my eyes straining for any glint of light, but the darkness was absolute. The theater felt bigger now, stretching on forever in every direction. Then, without warning, the screen lit up again. This time, it wasn't the lobby. It was me, standing in that very auditorium, looking around like a cornered animal. The camera angle was from somewhere high above, like the view of a hunter watching its prey. In the flickering glow of the screen, I saw them. People. Rows and rows of them, sitting perfectly still in the seats around me. They hadn't been there before. Every face was pale and expressionless, eyes wide, pupils blown black. They all turned their heads toward me in unison. I stumbled backward, bumping into a seat. The person sitting there, a woman in an old fur coat, slowly smiled, revealing teeth that were too sharp, too many. The screen flickered again, and the image changed. It was the title card of a film. The Last Reel. A low hum filled the air, vibrating in my chest. The people in the seats began to sway, their mouths opening wider and wider until the hum turned into a sound I can only describe as hunger. That's when I heard Mr. Harlow's voice. Not from the screen, not from the crowd, but right next to my ear. Don't watch it. I spun, and there he was, standing in the aisle, his face pale and drawn. Close your eyes, he said sharply. I didn't argue. I squeezed them shut, but the images were still there in my mind, the pale faces, the endless swaying. I felt his hand grip my arm, and suddenly I was moving. My feet hit solid ground that didn't echo. The air shifted, cooler now. When I opened my eyes, I was back in the real lobby of the Cedar Pines Theater. The clock above the concession stand read 12:17 a.m. Mr. Harlow let go of me and stepped back, breathing hard. You almost broke the most important rule, he said. I was shaking. What the hell is the last reel? He stared at me for a long moment. It's not a movie. Not anymore. It's an opening. An opening to what? He glanced toward the lobby mirror where our reflection stood. Except in the glass, there was someone else standing behind me. The man in the suit, smiling. To them, Harlow said quietly, and once they get through, they don't leave. I turned to look over my shoulder, but no one was there. When I looked back at the mirror, the man was closer, his hand just inches from my neck. Harlow grabbed my shoulder. Don't ever look directly at him. That's how he gets in. Before I could respond, the theater's front doors rattled violently, as if someone was trying to force their way in. The sound was loud, urgent, and wrong, like wood bending and bones cracking at the same time. I took a step back. It's locked, right? Harlow didn't answer. He just moved toward the concession counter and pulled out the small metal tin of old ticket stubs. Without looking at me, he began tossing them into a large metal bucket. One by one, he lit them on fire. The moment the first stub caught flame, the pounding on the doors stopped. We stood there in silence, watching the paper curl and blacken. The smell was sharp, almost metallic. When the last stub was gone, Harlow finally looked at me. If you want to quit, now's the time. But if you come back tomorrow, there's no leaving until it's over. I wanted to tell him I was done, that I'd never set foot in this place again. But when I walked to my car that night, I saw something in the lot that made my blood run cold. A fresh ticket stub lying on the wet pavement. The last reel, 12:05 a.m., July 13th, 1973. And this time it had my name printed on it. I didn't sleep that morning. I just sat on my couch staring at the ticket stub with my name printed across it, the date burned into my mind. July 13th, 1973. I wasn't alive in 1973. By the time night came, I'd convinced myself I wouldn't go back. Let Harlow and his cursed theater rot in the dark. But when I tried to ignore it, I felt something strange, a pull, like a thread tied around my chest, tightening with every passing minute. At 10 p.m., I was already driving to Cedar Pines. I don't remember deciding to go. My hands just turned the wheel on their own. When I walked into the lobby, the lights were dimmer than usual. Mr. Harlow was waiting by the concession stand, but his face looked wrong, too pale, his eyes sunken. You got the ticket, he said. I held it out to him. Take it. Burn it. He didn't move to grab it. It's too late now. The words hit me like cold water. What do you mean? He pointed toward the hallway that led to the auditoriums. They've already started. The air shifted, thick, heavy, carrying the faint smell of cigarette smoke and old perfume. From down the hall came the low hum I'd heard before, but this time it was louder, layered with the sound of a projector running somewhere deep in the building. The last reel, Harlow said. They're playing it. Who? Them. He stepped aside and I saw something I'll never forget. In the mirror behind the concession stand, the reflection of the lobby was full of people. Men in fedoras, women in long coats, children clutching popcorn bags. Their clothes were decades out of date. They weren't in the real lobby, only in the glass. And every single one of them was staring at me. The hum grew louder. The lights began to flicker. Harlow grabbed my arm. If you see yourself in there, don't follow, no matter what. He shoved me toward the hallway, and my legs carried me forward. I passed auditoriums 1 and 2. They were empty, dark. But when I reached auditorium 3, the door was wide open, pale light spilling out. Inside, the seats were full. The air was stale, hot. The screen was playing grainy black and white footage of the theater itself, but not as it was now. This was the Cedar Pines of 1973. In the middle of the screen was a figure, me. Not just a look-alike, me. Wearing the same clothes I had on now, sitting in the front row. From somewhere behind me came the man in the suit's voice. Come take your seat. I turned. He was closer than he'd ever been before. His smile stretched unnaturally wide. His eyes were pits of black. This is your show, he whispered. I backed away, but the theater seemed to fold in on itself. The aisles lengthened. The doors receded. The hum became deafening. On the screen, the me from the film turned in his seat and looked straight into the camera, straight at me. Then he smiled. I stumbled into the aisle, trying to find any exit, but the audience began to stand. Row by row, they turned toward me, mouths open wide, their faces blurred, twisting into shapes that weren't human. I heard Harlow shouting from somewhere far away. Close your eyes, I did, and felt a cold, dry hand grip my wrist. The world tilted, and I was falling. When I opened my eyes again, I was standing outside in the theater parking lot. The rain had stopped. The sky was just starting to lighten with dawn. The Cedar Pines Theater was gone. In its place was an empty lot, overgrown with weeds, surrounded by a rusted fence. I still had the ticket stub in my hand, but now the date read, July 13, 1973, Admit 1, no return. I drove away without looking back. I don't remember the drive home. It's been 3 days since then. Every reflective surface, mirrors, windows, even the black screen of my phone, sometimes shows the lobby of Cedar Pines. And each time, there are more people in it. Last night, I saw myself in there again, sitting in the front row watching a movie I can't hear. And I know, sooner or later, I'm going to take my seat. If you ever find yourself driving through rural Vermont at night, and you pass an old theater with the lights still on, keep driving. You don't want to know what's playing. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, give it a like, share it with a friend, and make sure you're subscribed for more strange rules and darker tales. Until next time, keep your eyes off the screen.